What's up guys, we're back with another review and we are taking a look at a, believe it or not, a transformer. Well, it doesn't transform, but it's still a transformer, right? We're taking a look at the ThreeZero MDLX Bumblebee. So this is like a smaller scale version of their very big and very expensive DLX line. So the first entry is Bumblebee, and he comes in this little tiny, super tiny box. So this guy is really small. Figure there in the window. You've got the kind of the logo and some product shots in the corner, wrapping around to the spine. Basically all over the box is just covered in various shots of Bumblebee in and out of different modes and then different styles of artwork here. Some of it's actual product shots, some of it's not. I really do like this box just because it's so small and the form factor is very, very tiny and compact. There's no wasted space when it comes to this box. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our ThreeZero MDLX non-transforming Bumblebee. A very small figure that packs a lot of punch. This thing's pretty crazy. I've been really surprised by what he can do, how he moves, what he looks like, everything really. There's a lot going on with this guy. So this is basically ThreeZero's take on Bumblebee, a classic Bumblebee that doesn't transform, with some die cast and also with a tremendous array of articulation and just a pretty wild aesthetic. Like, there's a lot to like here, especially if you're not hung up on the fact that it's a transformer that doesn't transform. I know there's plenty of people that's sacrilegious to them, but this thing's pretty wild. If you just want a Bumblebee that is pretty small, this is probably the way to go. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. He is well, maybe not surprisingly well articulated. ThreeZero is pretty good at making well-moving figures, but for this size, he moves really well. So you've got a head that can look up really far. The neck moves as well. Looks down basically into his chest. Tilt side to side. You've got rotation. Shoulder pads will lift up to get out of the way to allow the arms to go, all the way out. They will, of course, rotate. It's not really a butterfly joint, it's more how the figure is constructed, but it does have some movement like that. You've got what is essentially a bicep swivel. The elbow is kind of like a two-stage joint. It's weird. It's not exactly your normal double-jointed elbow, but it basically functions like that. Part of it is actually sort of inside the forearm. So it'll go about that far up. And then you've got ball pegs at the wrist, so they swivel around and a little bit in and out. Not the greatest range here, but it's doable. The torso is pretty well done, despite the fact that it's basically a box. It's very square, and he obviously doesn't have any kind of diaphragm cut specifically. He can't really go back too far, but he goes forward about this far. So there is a ball peg waist, and then there is a slight crunch right here that will actually allow him to bend forward a little bit more. So that does work a little bit better than I expected. You do have some tilt side to side, and then you've got your rotation there. So he's still a little bit limited, but it's not as bad as you might think at first glance. These sort of skirt pieces here will go out, and the legs can go all the way out. You can move those and then move these back to just sort of accommodate the leg. So full splits. They do kick forward all the way, and they kick backwards, probably more than you're ever going to need. You've got a thigh twist up there. You've got your knees, so pretty far back. And then we've got down at our ankles, because, admittedly, there is a lot of foot down here, right? So he can kick forward and backward, and then you've got a decent bit of rocker down here, too. So they can shimmy in and out pretty well. Better than I expected, especially not just because of the figure size, but because of the foot size. You would think that it wouldn't really do a whole lot, but they managed to sort of get it out of its own way, if that makes any sense. So I'm really happy with the way this little guy moves. Like, he's a lot of fun to pose, and a lot of that is because of how small he is. Like, it's fun to be able to have something that's this small that also is able to move really, really well, and move very fluidly, too. Not to mention the fact that everything is really tight, not in a negative way, just like, tightly engineered, because there's a lot of metal on this guy again, so everything feels very, very solid when you're posing him around. Now, I'd be lying if I said I didn't buy this, though, because of what it looked like. And a lot of it's the form factor, just the idea of this really tiny Bumblebee that I can put with other larger figures sounded like a fun idea, so here we are. But this thing's pretty wild. Like, ThreeZero really ran rampant with packing in as much detail as absolutely possible in an incredibly small figure. So, things like all of these sort of greased, almost greasy looking metal parts, like the joints. They look like they're kind of greased up and used. Tons of this exposed metal work on the inside. Stuff like that could have just been a plate, you know, cover it up and be done. Don't sculpt all that, but they decided to go that extra route and sculpt it. Bits like the little underwear pieces that move around. But all of this has just tons of paint work on it. I mean, even look at the back. It's covered in sculpt. This side of the figure that you hardly ever are going to see on your shelf, right? Covered in detail, covered in paint, just all of this exposed metal work, the joints, all of it looks fantastic. And again, you know, he is comprised of some die cast and metal parts, and it makes him feel really, really solid. Like he's not going to just blow over because he's so small. There's a lot of I don't know, robustness to this figure without him being overly large. You've got things like, you know, all of this exposed metal down here on the feet. Just the VW Bug aesthetic down here alone looks great. Tons of wash all over him. Nice metallic silver, really nice gunmetal blacks all over. One thing I didn't mention that does actually move, these wheels right here. You know, the wheels on the inside of the feet, these actually spin. I don't know why they need to do that, but they decided to make that happen. You know, one of those things for your non-transforming transformer that doesn't need to do anything, but they decided, why not? Let's just make that happen. And, you know, you've even got more detail down here on the bottom of the feet. So stuff like that really kind of makes this guy seem a little bit more worth it. Because he's not expensive, but he's more than your average transformer, especially for this size. But a lot of that comes down to the fact that there is just a tremendous amount of unique sculpting, tons of detail packed into every nook and cranny on this guy, and just a really great paint job too. Not to mention the fact that, of course, he does have die cast in him too. So he looks great. He's sized really, really well. Like I really can't get over just how tightly comprised he is when it comes to the form factor. He's just really solidly built while being just, you know, this little cute little tiny bumblebee. And then you've got, you know, your head sculpt up here, which I think looks pretty good. You know, it's definitely got its own spin on things. It still has, you know, leanings from G1, but, you know, I can see other interpretations here as well. But it's still undoubtedly a bumblebee head sculpt. So, you know, even without thinking, you know, that, yeah, that's just a different version of bee. And I think it looks great. Tons of wear and tear. Like, he's got a lot of battle damage up on the head here. Nice blue eyes there, which look great. So I'm really happy. I mean, you can obviously tell I'm really happy with the way this guy turned out. Like, when I got him out of the box, I just couldn't stop messing around with him because it's a fun little figure that just also looks great and is really, really solid for being such a tiny, tiny little figure. And then as far as some size comparisons go, we're just going to go all over the place, really. So here we go with Bumblebee in the middle. We've got a Gundam Universe figure on the left, Sandrock. And then we've got a Studio Series Transformer. This is Retgar over here on the right. Just to give you an idea of what, you know, some robot-y kind of stuff looks like in comparison. You know, Retgar absolutely towers over this figure to give you an idea of what another Transformer looks like alongside of him. And then let's do another larger scale figure. So here is a 7-inch scale figure. So there's Super 7's Ultimate Conan. And then let's move Sandrock aside. And here is a Black Series figure. There's an ARC Trooper, and that gives you, I think that gives you the best idea of exactly how small he is. You know, he's like a 4-ish inch figure. He's incredibly small. And then let's just do one more quick one. So here he is to really hammer it home. Here he is with a Vintage Collection figure. Here he is with a Mandalorian. You know, that's a 3 3/4 inch figure, so you can get an idea. He's just over 4 inches tall. He's really, really small, but again, just so much is crammed into this tiny figure. Now, as far as accessories goes, B doesn't have a ton, but for this kind of figure at this price point, I think he has exactly what he needs. To start with, we do get an extra head. This is like the masked version. So here is the regular one, of course. You know, this is a more traditional one. You can actually see his face. But this one's got the face shield down. It's still a very similar head sculpt. It just has the shield over top of the head, which I do like. I think this might be my preferred one. Something about it just looks a little bit more, I don't know, kind of more intimidating. And then we get some extra hands. So he's got fists on him in the box. You get a set. And of course, a set is 2. You get a set of trigger finger hands. And you get a set of splayed finger, style pose, relaxed, if you want to use them that way, kind of hands. So 4 extra hands. And then we get his gun. And this is done up in like a sort of a gunmetal-y black with a lot of dry brushing all over it in a silver to help make it look a little bit metallic, but also to bring out some of that sculpt. So it's got a pretty unique design. I do really like it. Tons of detail all over it, like even little bits of kind of scarring detail in there. And he can hold this really well. Of course, you know, the trigger finger hands are meant to hold this, but this is a really nice gun. This is the only actual weapon that he comes with, but I'm fine with that. For this price again, and how much metal is in this figure and how well engineered he is, I'm pretty happy with the small but pretty concise array of accessories he comes with. So yeah, overall, this little guy is an absolute winner. I mean, I think I've made it pretty clear that I'm really having a lot of fun with this figure, and that comes from someone who doesn't buy tons of Transformers. You know, I buy some here and there, and I've certainly picked up more recently than usual, but this guy is pretty wild. Like, just form factor, overall detail, the amount of articulation crammed into such a tiny, tiny figure is really doing it for me. There's a lot of fun to be had with this figure, not to mention the fact that he's incredibly solidly built. All that die-cast definitely makes him feel a lot more robust. And then, of course, he just looks cool and is fun to play with. That's pretty much all it comes down to. This is an excellent, fun figure. So that's going to do it for this look at the ThreeZero MDLX Bumblebee. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.